Information Station 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 5 minutes after 10 o'clock. I don't know what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
5 minutes after 10 o'clock, Wednesday morning. Yeah. And we have another interview to do. This is one you're going to like a lot. And, Robert, we speak to a lot of authors. We speak to very few authors, though, who've written a book as big as a dictionary. This is a huge book. The book is called This Is Rage. It's a novel of Silicon Valley and other madness. It's written by our guest, who's on the phone, Ken Goldstein. And let me just tell you what I know about Ken. From my notes here, he served as Executive Vice President and Managing Director of Disney Online. He's the Vice President of Entertainment at Broderbund Software, served as Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of the Board of Shop.com. He's an advisor of startup and established corporations in technology, which is no surprise, obviously, with all those other credentials.
Yeah.
Entertainment, media, and he's written a book. It is called This Is Rage, and a part of this has to do, by the way, with a radio guy.
Yes.
A radio guy.
A
shock jock.
Yeah, not you.
No, we are not shock jocks. We are push the envelope jocks.
Yes.
See, the shock jocks go over the line. We get up to the line.
Yes, we do.
I think it's more entertaining to get up to the line.
Yeah.
When you cross the line, you become a shock.
That's right.
Ken Goldstein, good morning. Thank you for being on the air with us today.
Larry Robin, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, where are you right now?
I'm calling you from Los Angeles.
All right. Well, thank you for getting up early to do this.
Yeah, well, the dogs do a good job of getting me up and getting me from the
I know, mine too.
All right, so the first thing I have to ask you is that when we do these interviews, we are often provided with cheat sheets. And I want to make sure that the cheat sheet lines up with what we want to talk about, because you've got an awesome novel here. And to be quite frank with you, I feel like the topic that's on my cheat sheet is going to cheat you out of us talking about this wonderful book. Mm-hmm. So if you want...
Talk about the book.
Okay, now you know the cheat sheet says to talk about layoffs. Is that what you want to talk about?
Well, you know, the book talks about layoffs, and it talks about what their impact is on people socially and psychologically. And
right.
So we've been talking a little bit about that to some of the hosts I've been talking with, but love talking about the book, so let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about the book. And let me explain why I did that way. Is because I know how the publicists work. I've done this long enough. They try to get us an easy path, something to talk about. And everybody is adamant about, laying off of jobs, right?
Yeah.
So every disc jockey that wants to be the next, well, we're not disc jockeys anymore, every radio host that wants to be the next Rush Limbaugh or whatever, they all want to jump on these pound on the desk topics. I want to hear a good story is what I want to know.
Yeah.
So well, good. I hope I've provided you with a good story, and I think it's a lot more fun than reading the dictionary. I promise.
Yes,
yeah, right,
it is.
right.
It is.
But
fun.
it is huge. Can I ask this stupid question? I know it's a stupid question in advance, but how long does it take to write a book this big?
You know, you can't measure it really in linear time. I sold Shop.com to Market America at the end of 2010, and I stayed on for about a year as an advisor, started, framing the book then, and then I really kind of dug in hard for a year, and then signed with my publisher and did a couple of edits. So all in about 2.5, 3 years, but, in start and stop time. Okay,
so a guy who is working in high tech must have one part of his brain working, and the entertainment part, the artistic, creative part is the other's half. So you're one of those guys that has two halves working at the same time.
Yeah, I like to say that I have three halves, and at any given time I'm using about 2/3 of it. So,
all right, so tell us the story, and then we'll kind of jump all over the place with you. Give us a thumbnail or a movie trailer version of the story.
Great. Well, it is a story of a talk show host who does go over the line, as you suggested, and gets fired from his job on AM radio after being a star in a major market, kind of hits bottom, and decides to reinvent himself on internet radio where there are no regulations, needs a story, just like you said, sticks his nose in a merger that's happening. In the middle of that merger, a kidnapping occurs. He smells a rat. starts getting people on the talk show host from the internet to tell them what's really going on, and they find out there's really quite a scandal here. In the course of that scandal, we find out that the employees at the company are very unhappy, and that resonates with employees across the nation, and they're very unhappy, and there's a big mistrust between management and workers, and that all plays out on internet radio. And our host, Kimo Balthaser, he has a show called This Is Rage. That is the name of the book, This Is Rage. And they express their rage, and it all kind of unfolds. If you remember Tom Wolfe's book, Bonfire of the Vanities, that was a real inspiration for me. And what he did in talking about the insanity of the bond markets in the 1980s, I tried to apply to the technology and media markets in today's world. And people get pretty upset when they're losing their jobs over people getting wealthy.
There you go. Oh, no question about it. Okay, so that's the topic that was fed to us. So in you expressing these thoughts through the personality that you've created, the disc jockey that you've created, are we hearing some of your own rage?
You know, I don't. To me, it's a quiet rage. It's the guy sitting in the cubicle waiting for the person to tap him on the shoulder and have that conversation with them. We all know that. I've been on both sides of that desk. I've certainly run a few companies and had to pass that tough message along. And so for me, it's more about trying to create a dialogue and a level of humility that I think is lacking in corporations now, so that people understand it's not just as simple as telling someone it's time to go home. Their job matters. Their job gives them identity. Their job gives them purpose. And I think when we look at it a little more that way, as opposed to straight hard economics and the bottom line, we're better people for it. So in terms of the rage, I guess that's the rage I'm trying to express.
Right.
But it's not an outward rage. It's a quiet rage. And in the book, it's a quiet rage.
Well, there was a part where Kimo is talking to Dennis, a caller named Dennis, and he says, come on, of course this is personal. It's just, I mean, that choice of words right there is dead on. I mean, so much of this that we're told, oh, it's not personal. Well, of course it is. And so I can relate to to Kimo's feelings on this.
Yeah, when you sit down with an employee, I'm sure you've been in radio, you've had to move from market to market, you've had a few changes. You know that look, right? Someone comes into the room and says, we need to have a talk, and sorry, this is just business, and here's your walking papers and your transition to your health care and your COBRA, and off you go. And they go back to their desk, and for them it's not personal. And you're sitting there, right?
Right, for them, right, it's exactly right. Yeah.
Very personal. It's your life, it's your identity, it's who you are, and it's your income. And I think that's out there. You can't pick up the paper and not see that happening, and then you hear the company can't afford this, has to shore up its bottom line, has to shore up its earnings and make the stock price go up, and so these people have to go home, and then you see bonuses distributed, and it doesn't feel very good. So I think that we need to do a better job of treating people in a better way, of harvesting their talents, of reinventing companies. There's a force called creative destruction that causes companies to fail. New ideas come into the market, replacing old ideas.
Right.
And jobs come out the back end. Well, if you focus on reinvention in your company, if you focus on innovation, you won't have the kinds of issues that I talk about in This Is Rage, because your people they're the path to the reinvention. They're not just costs. And when you treat people just as costs, you have an outcome like people walking out.
But is it really fair to say that the people that they're just mediocre, they really don't have any aspirations in life, they just are satisfied with working a 9-to-5 job, they don't contribute their knowledge or creativity, they're just there for the paycheck? They're the first ones that complain that the big corporations, the higher executives, even their bosses, make all this money, and then they say it's not fair. So why is it that those people are even being listened to by the politicians and the legislators, and that they're trying to cut the income of the guys at the top?
There are definitely people who dial it in and are on cruise control, and I've certainly had my share of those people over the years. That's not a layoff. That's firing. When somebody's not doing a job,
right.
When they're lazy, when they're just no good, or they're dishonest, or not showing any integrity, hey, I don't have any problem. Someone's bringing down the team. You got to make the hard decision.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when people are giving of themselves and trying hard, and putting themselves into the business and giving their creativity and innovation, and you just go in and treat them as a line on a spreadsheet and take them out. Yeah, no, I don't, and just to make more profits so that you can distribute bigger bonuses, I don't think that's right. I talk about people, products, profits in that order. That's kind of the mantra when I'm running a company. And the people who work for me are going to work hard, and they're going to give me everything they got creatively, and I'm going to give them everything I got in terms of loyalty. And yeah, we might hit a bump in the road, and we might have to do some adjustments. But I'm not just going to go in and say we got to get rid of costs because that's something that that the public is putting pressure on to do.
Wow,
and that's what Timo's trying to do in This Is Rage. He's trying to say to people, look, guys, your people are your solution, and they're saying, no, the stock price is the solution. Well, the stock price is just a reflection of what the company's doing. It's not the solution.
What I want to compare this to is when we have a murder mystery author that we're speaking to, and the murderer in the murder mystery, before we know who it is usually, is fleshed out to such an extent that when we find out who it is, we know that person, and we almost understand why that person did what he or she did. It's kind of what you've done. You've because you've been on both sides, as you mentioned earlier, you are able to paint the other side and give us an understanding. Even though we don't approve of it, at least we understand it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, one of the things a lot of people ask me early on are who are the good guys and who are the bad guys in the book. And I didn't want to write that book because we've got enough cop mysteries where we know who the good guy and the bad guy is. I wanted to, paint in shades of gray and show sort of, lots of different aspects. I tell you right off the bat who committed the crime. You see it happen. In fact, they're not the world's greatest kidnappers. In fact, they're not very good kidnappers at all. They're engineers, and they were trying to raise money to start a company, and they get this really, really, wacky idea. Well, why don't we kidnap the chairman of a company and ransom him back, and then we can start our own tech company? And you say, well, that sounds like the wackiest idea ever. I go out and I talk to these startup groups, these young entrepreneurs, and I tell them the premise of the book, and you sort of look at it and just like, well, we've given blood, we've given plasma. I don't know if it's the worst idea ever. Like I'm saying, no, I'm not advocating to go do this, but they see the satire in it, right? Which is there is a desperation that says, I got to get this company started. I got to raise money at any price. And I guess I can convince myself that kidnapping a senior executive is a good idea. Well, it's a terrible idea, and it proves to be a terrible idea.
So do you know...
It's a terrible idea.
You know Michael Eisner, right?
Yeah, I work for Michael.
So, did he know that you wrote this, and did he say, wait a minute, were you thinking about this?
That's right, that's right.
Michael has been a mentor and just a fantastic supporter of mine for 2 decades, and he read the book early on and gave me some great feedback, and he endorsed the book. So he's been great.
And if you're just tuning in, the book is called This Is Rage. It's written by our guest, Ken Goldstein, out in Los Angeles. And being in L.A., and I know this is a touchy question with authors, but do you want it to become a movie?
You want it to become a movie if it's the story that you told. There's always that, I've been around the movies, most of my professional career. In the beginning of my career, I wrote spec scripts like everybody else. If someone wants to, put the right people in the movie and tell the story that I told, do I want them, if they turn it into, a romantic comedy with, a killer who lives in a basement? No, probably not. But if it's the story that I told, I wanted to write a book, and it's really something to write a book because it's all you. You can't blame anybody. You can't.
Right. Right. That's right. Right.
Screwed it up. It's your words. It's your words. I had a fantastic editor, publisher, a new independent publisher called The Story Plant. They've been hugely supportive. They've been supportive of putting me on the air with folks like you to talk about it. They believe in the book. We've got a couple projects that haven't been announced that are associated with the book. But to me, it's a book, and it takes place in people's imagination. I want people to see chemo the way they want to see chemo. I want them to interpret chemo the way they want to interpret chemo. The kidnapper, Steyer, there's a crazy CIO who tries to sort out the company. There's a congresswoman. There is a movie studio CEO. and I want them to see all that in their mind's eye, and I want them to talk about it. One of the wonderful things, there's a lot of things about writing that aren't fun, all the alone time staring at the screen, and then, every couple of days you get a letter from a stranger in another country, who read your book and telling you how much impact it had on them, and that just feels so good.
That's got to be... That's got to be a rewarding part of it.
But the credibility, your credibility in writing the book is really amazing because you have been an insider all of these years, and you really know how to balance levity so it feels like real life when the reader is reading it.
Well, I try, and thank you so much for that. That's very kind. I wanted to explain to people how capital markets worked, but I didn't want you to have an MBA to read the book, and so it was a dance, right?
Right.
Can I show you how the stock market goes up? Can I show you how earnings per share works? But I don't want you to feel like you're sitting in the front of the schoolroom, and there's going to be a quiz at the end. And so I had to walk that line because the people who are very financially astute, they write to me and go, "Wow, this is great. You should have gone deeper." And the people who don't own any stocks or bonds go, "I have no idea what you're talking about." So I wanted to make it funny and informative.
Because all of the Steve Jobs that are out there, all of the Bill Gates that are out there, all of the technology gurus, if they haven't been located in the area that was deemed as Silicon Valley, and they were more toward the East Coast, would that still have had the same name, or?
Well, Silicon Valley in a lot of ways now. I mean, it is a place, although, there is no place on the map called Silicon Valley. It's like there's no place on the map called Hollywood. Hollywood's part of Los Angeles. Silicon Valley is part of, the Bay Area. But Silicon Valley is getting to be a mindset in the same way that Hollywood is. There's innovation going on all over the world. There's innovation going on in every state in the United States and most countries, emerging markets. And there's that same, I've got an idea for a movie, I'll write it down, and, we'll go cobble together some money and we'll make a movie and we'll get rich. Well, that's been replaced with I have an idea for a business plan, let's get it down on paper,
right.
Let's borrow some money against the house and see if we can start a company. And I think, that's very concentrated in Silicon Valley proper, the same way the movie part is concentrated in Los Angeles, but it's a frame of mind that people are adopting. And at the same time, the themes that, I talk about in This Is Rage of companies in transition, of companies in reinvention, people getting laid off, those things are coming to those same markets. You're seeing it now in India. You're seeing it now in China. You're seeing it now in Singapore. They get the good and they get the bad. And you find out that way more ideas fail than succeed. And there are way more bad managers than there are good ones.
And the interesting thing is you come up with an idea that's not reinventing the mousetrap or whatever, and sometimes you can be just as successful. I mean, you've written a book, and the book could change everything for somebody. I mean, it sounds like you've already been successful in your life, but we've spoken to authors who've had their lives improved unbelievably because they write a book, and next thing you know, they're living in a better house and have a better life.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I've been very, very fortunate, and I know that I've been way luckier than I'm ever been entitled to. Some of the great brands I've worked on over the years have been successful, and as software, as internet properties, as shopping properties, and so that part of my life I feel good about. But the storytelling, taking people inside that world, showing them what a boardroom meeting looks like, showing them what a financing looks like, showing them what the desperation of a manager looks like. That was the satisfaction I was looking for here, and opening up my world for other people to be able to see it. And that is just as satisfying as changing your economic status. And
you do exude that type of genuineness. You haven't fallen into that ego trap as a writer and as a person, thinking that you're above everybody else. And that's really a great reflection of the personalities of the different characters.
If you spent more than a couple of months in technology, you've been humbled. Your failures are, you can build your career, you can build a 30, 40-year career on 3 successes, and that'll be, backed up by 25 failures, and you just don't put those on your resume or your LinkedIn page.
That's true.
But, you only need a couple of good brands and a couple of good hits to succeed. But, boy, you're going to fail a lot of times getting there. And if you think that you're in any way, shape, or form smarter, that's when I hear people say things, the rich are smarter, the rich work harder. It's just not true.
It's absolutely not true.
That's not true. I mean, you got to get the right win. I talk to guys who with startups, and they'll tell you that with a couple glasses of wine in them. If I had been 6 months early or 6 months late on this thing, I never would have sold this company. I never would have financed. I'd have to be in the right place at the right time, catch the right wind, have the right investors at the table, not have the right competition in the market, have somebody introduce a bad product in the market that makes them look good. I mean, there are guys who repeat over and over again. Steve Jobs was a guy like that. He just had one success after another. But the rest of us are we're ordinary folks. We try hard. We have some good ideas. We have some bad ideas. But you got to get lucky. And if you don't realize that luck is a factor, then you're just not paying attention.
Well, and in some cases, and I'll use Walt Disney as an example, I mean, he was smart enough, and I guess Michael Eisner became in that same vein, to acquire. In other words, all the ideas don't have to come from your own head. You just have to have people around you who continue to have those ideas.
Yes.
Being a good leader, and Michael Eisner is the greatest example that I've had in my life of doing this. Being a great leader is inspiring the creativity in others and causing other people to want to do their best work for you. Michael made me want to do the best work of my life. He made me want to do it when I worked for him. He made me want to do it when he read the first draft of the manuscript. And that's a gift. It doesn't have to be your idea, but to be a leader, to cause people to want to give the best of themselves, and so that teamwork and creativity comes out, that's how you serve customers, and that's how you serve markets, and that's what I talk about in This Is Rage.
Well, what you just illustrated for us or exposed to us about yourself is why you were a great leader in the fields that we mentioned at the beginning when we were talking about your bio. That says it all right there. That says to me that if I worked for you, I would have been happy to do so.
Mm-hmm.
I hope so, but I'm sure that like everybody else, you have your supporters and your detractors. For me, the first thing you get rid of is credit. Now, you get credit when you write a book because you wrote it. It says "buy" on the front page, right?
Right.
But in business, if you start taking credit for teamwork, your teams are just not going to get behind you. They're not going to rally.
Absolutely, no question about it.
Credit. It is about teamwork. It's about everybody giving. It's about everybody sharing in the rewards.
Absolutely, that's exactly how we feel. If you were listening to this show on a regular basis, you would know that we don't even say our names as "This is my show." This is
exactly.
The show has a title. It's called AM Ocala Live. It's not the Larry and Robin show.
No.
People know who we are because we have to tell who we are. But Ken, this is such a great conversation. I don't feel like we're doing a radio interview. I feel like we went to lunch or something.
That was what makes it a great radio interview. It feels like we went to lunch. We got to talk about things that matter.
Yeah, I think so. I do appreciate these kind of interviews.
Jeff, some of the characters in your book, are they formulated on some of your individual personalities throughout different times of your life?
There's a great line from a Pink Floyd song that says, "I see myself in every stranger's eyes." And when you start to really think about writing seriously, wherever you're sitting in a restaurant, you're sitting, waiting for your car, to get fixed, and you listen to the dialogue that's going on around you, and you start to internalize it. All that's fair game. It's all going to become part of a character. There are no specific people in This Is Rage that I've caricatured or written about, but there are little collections and little bits of people I've met along the way, and lots of little bits of me.
Are you a musician too?
I am. I'm. Don't know how you know that, but amateur musician. Been playing since I was a kid. But as the years have gone on, my fingers have slowed down a bit, and not quite as good as I used to be. But certainly enjoyed that Beatles tribute the other night. We started saying, "Wow, wouldn't that have been cool to be on stage for that?" But
we were saying the same thing. Wouldn't that have been cool? You put yourself, and here's the thing about the Beatles. Since we're just sitting at lunch, not really talking about your book. The thing is this, that so many bands tried to be them. It's amazing how many people tried to be that, have that experience, and I don't think there's only 4 people on the planet that had it.
Yes.
I have this black book. Literally, I'm looking at it right now on my bookshelf. It's called The Beatles Complete. It's about as thick as my novel. and it's all their sheet music for all their songs. And whenever, I'm sitting there looking, and I just go, how did this happen in 8 years? How much creativity, and, with the exception of maybe Revolution Number 9, there's not a bad song in there. And it's just, but when you think about that, right, all that music was done, and it was written, it was performed, it was recorded, and just how do you equal that? I mean, there are lots and lots and lots. I see a guy like Jeff Lynne on the stage. He's a magical musician.
Right.
I deeply admire Jeff Lynne, and you see Joe Walsh up there. But you know what? That came out of Paul and John and some George, and you hear a song like when My Guitar Gently Weeps, and it's just, you just feel that, and it feels like it was written yesterday. Well, yesterday. Right?
and
anyway,
don't forget.
Yes, I am a musician, and we are not doing justice to my book. This is Rage.
I know, but
I know.
All right, so here, let me do justice for it. All right, I have a copy. This is an awesome book. I'll say that. This is Rage is in my hands right now. I will give it away. If you want it, call me. It's yours. The rest of us have to go get it. By the way, while you were speaking, I went to your website, or I went to one of them, thisisrage.com, and you can get a free, what am I getting for free on here?
Free mini ebook. If you go to Amazon, there's actually, we've done a collection called So Saith Chemo, some of the monologues from Chemo's radio shows, and literally no questions asked, just go to, follow that link through to Amazon, and you can download that for free. And it's about 60, 70 pages of the book, which you can download to your Kindle.
And who's the distorted face on the cover of that?
One of my artists, one of my creative friends who did the art direction, kind of mocked that up. And I said, well, having read the description of Chemo, what does he look like? And he drew that and said he looks like this. And I go, you know what? I think he does look like that.
Oh, wow. All right, let me get this one away. Good morning. You've got This Is Rage. Who's this?
This is Mary.
All right,
Thanks, guys, for the interviews.
Thank you, Mary. It'll be waiting for you here, okay?
All right, thanks.
Thank you. That was a great conversation. I love when they go that way, Robin. Ken Goldstein, thank you so much for being on the air with us today. Is there any other information our listeners should know?
Larry, Robin, thank you. You've been gracious host. It's been great having lunch with you this morning for breakfast. And, just send folks to thisisrage.com, and they can send me comments and interview and review it on Amazon. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to talk about these things and share these thoughts. And it's just really a privilege to be able to be an author and talk about my work.
Privilege for us, an honor for us, Ken. Thank you again for being on the show with us. All right, we'll take a little break. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Christy with Ocala Mac and PC Repair and Ocala Guest Wi-Fi to let you know we have you covered. We are the only local certified Apple and Microsoft computer company in Ocala. We are family owned and operated. From mobile repair to wireless networks, viruses, new systems, or security cameras, we do it all. Check us out online, ocalamacpc.com, or give us a call, 352-566-8324.
Tell them Nick, Madison, or Mason sent you and get free diagnostic.
Get your internet telephone service